Hello and welcome to this COMP3218 game design and development video from the University of Southampton. My name is Tom Blount, I am one of the lecturers on the course, and I am joined here today by...
And I'm Dave Millard, I'm one of the other lecturers on the course.
So, this set of videos is going to be for the second coursework on the game design module. Dave, could you tell us a little bit about what we asked the students to do for it?
Yeah, so we asked the students to develop a game prototype which contains a story engine with a branching interactive narrative. And it had to be inspired by one of three of Aesop's fables. I'm sure those will come up as we go through the games.
All right, brilliant. So with that in mind, let's have a look at our first game. Okay, and our first game is Hares Adventure. So yeah, nice title
screen.
Yeah. A little bit beige otherwise, but we've got to play, we've got achievements, we've got no way of going back, so we are stuck here forever. Achievements. Unexpected. Okay, so we've got, I guess, some guidance of like the multiple endings and then a whole bunch of locked... That's a lot of achievements, actually. I don't know if we're going to see all of them in this.
Yeah, one suspects not.
Okay. Tab to open inventory, WASD to move. We've got a timer in the bottom.
Good that they've remembered to give us some instructions.
That's a lot of inventory space.
That's a big inventory.
Okay.
Oh yeah, okay.
We've got some footstep noises as well.
That's a very interesting rabbit animation.
E to interact.
Welcome to the Speed Festival.
I'm just gonna drop this.
So I'm already getting an impression of what which fable this might be based on.
Oh, which one do you think it is? Annual festival. Okay. Prize. You're one of the best runners. Would you be interested in running? Yes, of course. I would like to see the rest of the game.
Yeah.
As long as you arrive at the town's east gate by 8 PM tomorrow morning, you'll be able to. So don't be late. So east gate tomorrow, 8 AM. Okay, and it's 6 PM now.
Okay. So I quite like that little dialogue system with the popping up. That worked quite well.
We've got a rabbit. No, that's a miner. We're a rabbit. Do you know any shortcuts? There's a cave in the northwest that would save you loads of time. We'd normally clear it out with special pickaxes, but they've gone missing. Is that special? Or is that's a regular pickaxe, I guess?
Guessing that must be a regular one, yeah.
So
they want a steel pick, a reinforced iron pick, and a diamond pick. Where could they be? That sounds like a lot of work. All right.
Scattered around the village. Okay.
Okay.
Is this one? Yes, that was one of them. Okay.
It was one. It's the world's least observant miner. Okay.
What's going on? Head of the village.
A champion trophy's gone missing.
Okay.
It's been misplaced.
There's no sign of the trophy. Well, if it's anything like the previous guy, it's just next to him somewhere.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to get it back. We can't win the trophy if the trophy's not there, so...
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any clues? We speculate that there are two suspects. Okay, so we've gone from race game to detective game.
Yep.
The one with the brown water bottle sign is Mr. Fox's house. The one with the green water bottle sign is Mr. Squirrel's house, and the one with the cross is the pharmacy. Okay.
Pharmacy?
Yeah, that didn't. Okay, let's talk to you. So right now, we can buy things.
We're just accumulating quests here, aren't we?
I can buy a sardine. Should we buy a sardine?
I don't know.
What does the sardine?
No. I want sardines. I'm here for a race.
I can buy a bass, or possibly a base.
Yeah.
I can buy some salmon. It's just a fish store.
It's a very particular salesman.
Carp. Yeah, I've never been into a shop with that. Would you like a salmon? No. What about a tuna? No.
How much money do we have?
It said in our inventory it was 100 and something, I think. Tuna, eel, herring.
But it doesn't tell us now. Yeah.
125. That's an interesting interface for a shop. Here's Mr. Fox. I was expecting an actual fox. I am here to ask you something about the trophy theft. If you are free, feel free to... I want to ask you, the night before yesterday at the bar, drinking with my business partner, we were talking about some prices. Did you know that the security guard in charge of the storage room was also there? I have a clue. I heard someone in the bathroom say that the purchase price had gone up that night. Did we?
What? Who? No. Many.
Okie doke.
Okay.
Prosperous business, happy life. Okay.
Okay. So I confess I
Don't
was
say that.
expecting a I was expecting a race game, but
Well,
you're right. It's a very different game. But why would we want any of these things?
presumably because there's a clue in there that we need to investigate. But you're right, we don't have any way of knowing to ask for that right now, so it's weird that we automatically know about it. When does the time advance? Oh, the time's just ticking up. I wondered if it was like every time we interacted with somebody.
Yeah, you have the 8 a.m. race start, which is helpful in the top right.
Taking up a lot of the screen, though.
It is, yeah.
All right, I can afford to buy both of them. Let's buy both of them.
Okay.
Oh, I've got to have it.
Select it.
How do I select something in my hotbar?
Can you?
Number 2. Oh, okay, there we go.
2?
Number keys, yeah.
Ah, right.
Oh, that's not the right key. It's the other key.
Okay.
I feel like that could have been simplified a little bit. All right, let's investigate. Oh, I can just have it. Oh, I can just sleep.
Yeah, let's not do that. You see, I'm wondering whether that's in fact what you do in the end.
Maybe that is why we.
Because you've got no reason to investigate unless I missed something.
Well, I was there was something about the fox and the overhearing a conversation in the pub last night about maybe stealing the trophy or maybe just business stealing. So, but in which case, why could I buy 2 keys?
Yeah. All right, let's
let's keep going.
Let's keep going. See what else we can find.
So,
while we're exploring, shall we think about some of the kind of basic criteria as well?
Okay.
So perhaps starting with the presentation. So that's kind of graphics, audio, and info. What are your thoughts?
I mean, overall, it's a relatively nice tile set. Some of the the animations, like the rabbit sort of going in little loops, is a little bit odd. Information design, we get some clear things when we can interact. There's obviously more they could have done with that, like highlighting the object we're interacting with, or even just changing the font from the default. That goes on to my next point, actually. The fact that the lights change as the time changes gives us a nice indication of what's going on. I like that.
That's nice, yeah. Yeah, and the dialogues all kind of work. I think the font sizes seem to grow or shrink depending on the size of the text, which is again not ideal, but kind of I guess works.
I feel like I'm breaking and entering at the minute. But yeah, overall it's.
Yeah, I mean a good would be sort of professional, complete and effective. Excellent would be impactful, and I'm not sure I would place it up there, but I think probably there's quite a lot going on actually, and they've done a reasonable job of showing us all the stuff. And we've got audio effects, we've got as you said, the graphics are pretty nice. So I think probably at the good level is about right.
Okay. So back to our Fox mystery. This is why when they told us Mr. Fox's address, they also told us the pharmacy address for seemingly no reason, because we've just found a clue in Mr. Fox's house that's led us to the pharmacy.
Right, okay.
I mean, it's 10 o'clock at night. I don't know if the pharmacy's going to still be open, but we'll find out. Okay, yeah, so if we say good for the presentation. I think there is some audio as well. There's some sort of footsteps as we walk. There's some little background music. We'll see if there's any in the race as well. Yeah.
What about the play? So now we're talking about the complexity of the mechanics, the controls, whether you see any bugs, that kind of stuff.
Again, the sort of movement controls are a little bit floaty in a way, but not terribly so. At the moment, I was going to say at the moment there's not much that we've seen in the way of mechanics. We kind of have we can buy and sell stuff. presumably there's a
we've
useful
we've got
reason for that.
items.
We've
The
got
dialogue.
items. We can unlock
You're
different areas.
exploring, unlocking doors. I think it's the dynamics, right? So there's not much in the play space. You're exploring really, with this kind of detective puzzle mystery on the top. I mean, would you say that it's so a satisfactory would be playable. Good would be engaging.
I'm not feeling engaged yet. I'm hoping there's something at the end that sort of ties this all together. Right now, I feel a bit directionless. Like I've shown up and I've been entered into a race, and now I'm wandering around doing a fishing mini game, and I'm stocking up on like. Do these give me like health? Oh, I recognize these sprites. Do these give me like health or energy or something in the final? I'm unsure. So it's the sort of lack of goals, I think, at the minute that's tripping me up.
So I think for the moment, let's say that it's if it's at that kind of satisfactory playable level, because there's a relatively decent amount of complexity here. The controls are fine, they work all right, and let's just see what happens later on. But like you said, directionless is a good way of putting it. I'm not quite sure what you're looking for or why you're looking for it, or kind of. It feels more like you're exploring and going everywhere and talking to everybody and opening everything and collecting everything you can.
I think part of it is I've only got a certain amount of time until the race, so the fact that I don't know where the pharmacy is relative to me, like it's like a mini map or an actual map would be really nice, because I haven't got a lot of time and I'm having to sort of I've instructed them to remain silent. That sounds ominous.
Oh, what's that note?
Something
Scientific
about
reality shifts. Oh, blimey! Okay, this is getting all science fiction on us now.
So my only lead at the minute is there's a pharmacy somewhere, and I've got the fox's medicine bill, so I should talk to the person in the pharmacy. Maybe I should be getting a good night's sleep before the big race, rather than.
Well, yeah.
I've got 2 rooms to sleep in.
I love the way all these people just stood outside their houses at 10 to midnight. It's like, nothing better to do. Would you like to help?
I'm already helping. The thief is Mr. Squirrel. I have no evidence for this, but your answer is wrong. Actually, what?
How do you know that?
Oh. Okay.
What?
That's
very meta.
That's actually, I kind of like that as a twist. I think it'd be more. Okay. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. On the one hand, I kind of like it as like you say, a very sort of meta twist on it. But equally, that was the one thing that I thought we had direction for. It's like, oh, can we solve this mystery to return the trophy ahead of the thing? And it turns out, oh, that was meaningless.
Yes. There's also the subplot with the pickaxes. I don't know if you picked up any more pickaxes.
I've got one more, but you're right. There's one more to go.
And we can take a shortcut if we do that. Not that we'd want to cheat, obviously.
Ooh. Oh. Okay, so do we want to start talking about story engine? I'm not sure if there's.
Well, I'm just looking at the flowchart they've got for the story as well to kind of try to understand it. It's a little bit chaotic, but complex. So the complexity is good, but the chaotic makes it a bit hard to see how it's working. It looks to me like there's kind of these 2 separate stories, the village story and the race story.
So from having spoken to them in the lab, yeah, the game is sort of broken up into Joe's house, who is Joe, is, yeah, these two parts of walking around and sort of doing stuff in the village, and then
Yeah.
the race itself. Okay.
But I'm trying to see if there's any way. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So actually, as we're sort of looking at the idea of story engine, this is an interesting thing, right? We've already found out that the missing trophy mystery is actually just a fun game that they're going to put on, yet we're still getting this dialogue, and that's an example of the story engine not necessarily keeping track of the things that have happened.
Well, did you believe the?
Oh, do we believe the sheriff?
Mayor who told the sheriff? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the sheriff's in on it. Maybe it was the sheriff that did it.
So I'm totally baffled. I'll be honest with you. So we've come in. There's this thing. There's we're finding these notes, giving us some clues. Some bloke tells us that it's an immersive story experience. Not sure if that's true or not. Do you just go to bed at this point and then do the race?
It's also interesting that they chose to start it at like 6 p.m. and we've got to be up bright and early for the race.
Yes.
We've got to be at the door at the race at 8. Like, it feels like I can see that they want to put a time limit on it for a sense of drama and pacing, and we'll get onto that in a moment. But also, I don't know. Like, is it enough time to feel like we're able to accomplish something? Oh, this is Squirrel's house. Squirrel's house. Ah, a letter.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, no idea. So what's your plan? Are we going to just go to sleep now until the race tomorrow?
I think, yeah, let's do that. If I can find out where the inn is. I think it was this way. Yeah, there's the inn.
There's the inn, yeah.
Which room should I choose to sleep in?
Well, choices. Rest.
Oh, now it's 6 a.m, so we've got to dash over to the gate.
Have you seen the gate on your travels?
I think it was just the easternmost bit. There we go.
There we go.
Exit or walk away? I guess exit is.
Exit, I guess.
So this is. Oh, there's a note behind that tree.
Faded note.
My time is running short. I fear they know I'm onto them. If something happens to so there's this extra like undercurrent. So there's a bunch of different narratives here. There's the trophy one.
Yeah.
There's the pickaxe one. There's these faded notes we found about dimensional rifts and somebody being hunted and. Okay, so the race starts at 8, so we actually just have to chill around for, I guess, 2 minutes. So while we're doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the story engine then. So, the story engine is essentially saying we've got kind of a game element, a narrative element, and how well are they interacting with one another. So the first one is to what extent do events in the game world impact the story, and then to what extent does the story impact the game world. So in terms of the first one, which is the game world to story.
So there are some. So presumably, the main one is: do we win the race or do we lose the race? And that's going to have an impact on the thing later. But there's a few things where, like we've already said, the story engine isn't always taking account of everything that's going on. So like,
yeah.
Well, difficult to say based on the plot because I'm not quite sure I understand where they were going with the trophy thing.
No.
But the fact that we were still getting trophy clues even though we'd apparently solved it, or maybe like you say, that's a hint that we haven't actually solved it. But like here,
right?
like we talked to the turtle, like every time, and every time he gives us the same dialogue, he doesn't say, "Oh, hello again" or something like that. Like the little things like that.
So their main thing is that they're saying that you've got the day-night cycle, so that's happening within the game world, and story events like the race only occur at particular times, right? So
well, when they say story events like the race, is it just the race? Because I haven't noticed anything else changing, right? Nobody goes to bed.
That's the only example they're giving us.
Well, hang on.
So, yeah, and they also say, some game world elements like the inn speed up the narrative. I think, as you said, what we're looking for, we've got these kind of narrative interactions, which are things like the dialogues, the kind of the contents of the notes. These are the game parts. Is there anything in the game world that's impacting those? Not really. So I would say that there is some limited interaction, but it feels more like. So it feels very similar to a journey story, right? Where you might say something like, well, let's say I had 2 levels, okay? And here we have effectively got 2 levels, right? We've got the village and we've got the race. And I have to complete the village in order to get to the race level. And there's another bit of story that happens in the race level. Well, you can say that the game world is impacting the story because you can't get to the race story until you've completed the game world. But it's a journey, right? It's not a more complex structure. So I actually think it's quite limited.
Yeah, we've got a lot of clocks on the top of the screen right now.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know. I'm just following this path, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is definitely the right path.
Probably.
I thought this was a pond. I guess. Like, could I just cut the corner and go to the end?
Well, somewhere presumably there's a shortcut when you need the pickaxes. But also, why do you need the pickaxes? You're the hare.
I'm a hare, yeah.
That's what I don't. Yeah.
So the turtle will win in 7 minutes, but the race ends in 4 minutes.
Yeah. And also, this isn't the most engaging
racetrack
gameplay
that I've ever seen. Yeah.
If we were thinking about meaningful play, is this engaging, or is it playable? We said it was playable. I suppose it is still playable.
So here's the thing, right? I was expecting this second section to be the most gamey section, and the first bit was the more narrative-y section.
Yeah.
But there was seemingly a lot more gameplay in that first bit. This is just walking along a path. There's no sense of, like, I'm not sure I'm on the right path, but there's no sense of challenge because the turtle is a turtle, and and it's not like there's anything to look at on the path. There's just 2 different shades of green, and that's a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens if and when I get to the end.
As you get to the end, I guess.
I'm on the other hand, it is like incentivizing me to be like, you know what? I am just going to sit here and see what happens, and maybe the turtle will catch me up. But let's keep going. I'm gonna keep. Was it slow and steady wins the race? Which is not to say going slow is a good idea, but being consistent is a good idea. So let's consistently go this direction.
Yeah. So do we know what race ends means? It says the race ends in 3 minutes. Like, why does the?
Maybe we have to have finished it by then. I don't know if that's just a puddle or something.
But then you said when the turtle wins, and why does that happen?
Oh.
Here we go. We've got a sign. You can flip the sign. We don't need to flip the sign. We're the hare. You can just go down to the left route, I guess.
Okay, but that would then be an example of gameplay impacting story. Again, whether it's a meaningful choice or not, debatable.
True.
But
yeah.
Like we can take an action in the game to hinder our rival, and again, I'm presuming that will have an impact on the story. It would be silly to include that and not do something.
the chart says there are several different endings based on a combination of choices, but they haven't said what those are.
Okay, so that will make it difficult for us to find
would,
all of them.
Yeah, but one guess is that whether or not you flip the sign is one, right? Another one was that cave. We haven't seen it yet, but there's that cave. I guess that might be one. Presumably, there's whether we solved the mystery or not as well.
So I wasn't sure if it was just a. So there was a choice right at the start of the race that was a turtle. And we had two dialogue options. Oh, I can start late and still win, or I'll still give it my best. And I think
why
I
would
picked.
You start late?
Yeah, I picked. I'll start late, but hello.
Is it? Obviously, speed wins no contest. What you start. So we've got a slightly inconsistent figure there as well, the major.
Yeah, but who's the major? Oh, is that the mayor from earlier?
Is it the mayor, or do you think it's the? No, it's not the mayor. It's different.
So who's the major?
That is not how the story games. Round one. Okay. So we won the race. So
I was kind of hoping for a finish line or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so achievements.
I don't think
somehow lose a race with plenty of time.
Can we see them all now, or oh no?
No.
So I don't think we're going to have time to go through the whole thing again, but maybe we could have a quick go at it while we talk about the story engine.
So this is interesting. Those crumpled notes persist across plays. That's kind of nice. So there's a story that will continue on.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. So
is that the purpose of the what was it? The multiverse and interdimensional rifts, and is that because we're replaying it again? Is this like a funny meta commentary, or is this actually a plot line we should be following? I'm not sure.
Oh, you've acquired the diamond pickaxe.
I've just got to remember where I left the others now. But I didn't see any shortcut.
Talk to someone and see if they recognise you from. Or
they
reference to the fact. We could say the thief is. Oh. Who do you think it was? Won the title of our Speed Festival detective. Okay. All right. So in terms of the story engine, then, so we'll put our sort of slight bafflement to one side, put one side for a minute. So we've definitely got some examples of where the game world impacts the story. Yeah.
Yes.
You've got the timing. You've also got what else did you have? You had the flipping the sign will affect the story. So it's a little bit blurred because all of the interfaces are done, all of the interactions are done through the same kind of dialogue. So it's a bit harder to say this interaction is in the story world and this interaction is in the narrative world. Because if you're being purist about it, you'd say the only game world interaction you have is walking around, right?
And arguably using items. I still have no idea what the fish is.
Picking up items, yeah. And as far as I can tell, having items is never referred to in the story.
Other than maybe these pickaxes. And
I suppose, yeah, actually that's true. So okay, so we've got the cave. So I think we've got a couple of examples, right?
Also, just another interesting thing. This is the second time we've played it, and I want to rush to the end, which means I have to pay money at the end to do it. So it's entirely possible to lock yourself into a situation where you have to just wait for 20 minutes to be able to continue.
Yes. So if it was satisfactory, we would say there were some examples where the game world impacts the story. Right, and I think we're saying we can say that. Good would be a number of examples where the game world impacts the story in important ways, and it feels like it's not quite there.
It's definitely difficult to say that it's important.
Yeah,
other than maybe changing the sign, but again, because we're we're a hare.
Yeah.
Exit only allowed for participants in the race. Oh, I've got to actually go and say I want to. Well, that's another interesting choice of you have to go and speak to this one particular person right at the start, or you just can't continue the game.
Yeah.
And now I can't remember which person they were. But yeah, okay. Aha, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. First one. So okay, so if we say that that's satisfactory, we've got a couple of examples. What about the other way around? Story to game world. Are there game world choices story choices that impact the game world? So we've already said things like flipping the sign, picking up stuff. That's game world. So we're talking about dialogue. So that'd be things like saying, no, I'm not interested in racing, or
I was going to say I should have chosen that, but
go on then.
But see, now I've still got to just sit here for a minute, and this is not engaging gameplay. So there's, I guess, there's the choice at the start of no, I don't want to participate, and then we just don't get to play the rest of the game.
Does that happen, or does it just make you participate anyway?
I don't know. We'll have to go back and have a look at that later on, because right now I want to see if I can use these picks for a...
So apparently there are vendors where you can buy speed potions as well.
I did buy a speed. I still don't know how to use anything in the hotbar though.
Okay.
But
you see, I wouldn't say that's in the narrative, right? Whether or not. So this is, I think, one of the problems with the narrative diagram. They've got stuff on there like, do you participate in the race? Do you find the pickaxes? Do you, pick up speed potions? These aren't narrative decisions, right? They're kind of things that you do in the game world. But I suppose
buying a speed potion is very much a mechanical, like, oh, I can buy this thing which will give me a speed boost. I wouldn't say that's a story choice. And the ones that are there are, like you say, like. Also, I'm trying to find this cave that they said was in the northwest, and now I'm lost in the void.
So essentially, we're finding more stuff that's game world to story, but we're not finding too much story to game world.
Oh, and because I was outside of the gate, or because I wasn't right next to the turtle at 8 o'clock, maybe I should come back later.
Okay.
What? So I've just missed the race?
Don't know.
Maybe I just go back to bed?
So in their notes, they've explained how the game world shapes the narrative, but they haven't explained how the narrative feeds back to the game world.
Oh, so the race ends in 14 minutes, so I just have to wander around for 14 minutes.
Oh, okay. Can you go to bed?
Nope, because I'm already well rested. So
I'm still trying to find places where the story decisions impacts the game world. So I think there's quite a few where story decisions impact the story.
Yep.
So
I'm not going to just sit here walking around 40 minutes. I'm gonna go back and explore some more things. But yeah. So I'm just saying no.
So are there any dialogue choices that we make that change the game world? By which I mean the objects that we can find, the places we can find, any kind of interaction with how we navigate around the map, the actual mechanics of the game.
It doesn't seem to be, other than possibly the one at the start of the race where we say, oh, I can just kick back and start later. But even that didn't seem to, like, it's not like we gave the turtle a head start. It may have changed the value of some of the clocks, but
so we think that there might be some dialogue choices that change the state of the clock. And that's it. Is that right? Is that the only way that it impacts the game?
Speaking to this person at the start locks the front gate, so we can't participate in the race if we don't agree to be part of the race. But again, that's a
okay.
That feels like a very. I would say that's a detrimental to the experience, right?
It is, but
it's not like it gives you
It is an example of where the story impacts the game.
Okay, I'll grump about that one when we talk about agency. But yes, you're right. That is an impact of I make a dialogue choice, and now I have constraints.
So we've spotted two, right? The gate opens or closes, and the clock may change, and that's it.
Okay. So do
So
we feel that that is hits
well,
the pass level?
so that would be a few sparse and minor examples of where the story impacts the game world. A poor would be some support for story elements of the game, but the story has no real impact on the game world.
Perhaps between the two, even.
Yeah, I think probably between the two. Yeah, I think kind of there's just. Yeah, I think they needed to, and partly it's because of their game world that so much of this is happening in the narrative space. They needed to think carefully about what they could actually influence in the game world. Okay, well, you wanted to talk about agency, so let's talk about agency. So this is about the richness of choices, the number of choices, all those kind of elements.
Yeah, so first example off the top of my head, we can collect fish, we can buy fish, but what's the purpose of that? What does any of that do? Like, I don't know if I can sell them, I don't know how to eat them. Like, I don't know if eating them would give me a speed boost in the race, or if it's just a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Same with the speed potion, like that at least I can kind of grok that, okay, that will... Aha! So you to use the selected item, but that only shows up for the speed potion. The fish is just a red herring.
So, what are your choices?
Do the race or don't do the race. Collect the pickaxes and use the shortcut, although I've not...
So I would say to do the race or not do the race is not a particularly interesting choice.
I wouldn't say it's an interesting choice, but it is a choice.
It is a choice. The whether or not to cheat is an interesting choice, apart from the fact that you're the hare.
I don't need to, like, if it had been the case that, oh, I've overslept and therefore I'm going to lose because I was a lazy rabbit, and then I can choose to cheat, that becomes more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd think, I mean, given the fable is about the rabbit having a doze and getting beaten, you'd think that would effectively become a choice that was taken away from you.
It's one of these things of, like, the narrative paradox, right? Your avatar has to make bad choices to make the narrative interesting, but a player won't make those choices because why would I start the race late?
So so you have to give the player a reason to start the race late and to do something else.
And weirdly, finding the trophy would have been a perfect example of that, but it turns out that's just an ARG.
Yeah. So if there was somewhere you had to be at 8 o'clock in order to find the trophy, for example, so that would be a really meaningful choice, right? Do you go to the gate at 8 o'clock and start the race, or do you intercept the thief at 8 o'clock and get the trophy, right? And again, these choices, we're interested in grey choices, internal choices. So that's about saying to you, what do you value more? Do you value more finding the trophy and being the sort of hero of the village, or do you value more actually winning the race, even though there is no trophy to be awarded, right? But we don't get much of that.
And it's not to say that all choices have to be sort of morally grey or ambiguous, but that's just a very clear example of what might make a choice interesting.
So for this richness of choices category, a pass would be there are some choices but only a fewer interesting choices, and a poor would be few choices, player agency is problematic.
It feels like we might be veering towards problematic.
Yes.
Equally, have they done some interesting things with giving the appearance of agency?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we could say that. Yeah.
I mean, it only lasts for 30 seconds.
Whee! Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think if I was just judging it on the story itself and the choice and the choices there, I would say it would probably be at the poor level, right? That the player agency is problematic. I think there are, however, there's not very few choices. There are definitely some choice points, and they've also, as you said, they've made some attempts to manage player agency and to have sort of other things that the game will do if you choose not to participate in the race, right? So I think a poor would be probably a little bit unfair.
Yeah.
So really the question is it halfway between a poor and a pass, or do we think that there's enough here to achieve a pass? Some choices, but only a few interesting choices.
I think it might be partway between the two. Okay, let's see if I can find this. Let's see if I can find this cave, because that might change my mind on it.
Yeah, that's the one that feels like an interesting choice to me.
You said the northwest, right? Is that looks like a...
No, it's just a sort of thing. So is this... You have got all three.
No, maybe that's not the door. It's just a texture.
So you have to go and... Yeah, looks that way.
Aha! That looks like a cave.
That looks like a cave. Let's go in. Right. Interesting.
But again, it's still just walking around, right? It's...
Yeah, and again, it's not clear as to why. So what would make this an interesting choice is if there was some kind of dilemma, right? For do I do this or not? Requires steel pickaxe to be selected. Do you remember which one was the steel pickaxe?
Nope.
Okay. So.
Okay. So now we're but I don't know where the end of the race is from here.
No.
Arguably, that's another dilemma, right? Is using a shortcut cheating?
Yeah.
But that's only interesting if there are then consequences as a result.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's set up to make you think, oh, you know.
But right now,
should you do this or not?
Right now, I'm just in a void with trees. The race ends in 30 minutes.
I think we have to say it's halfway between the two.
I think at the minute we do, yeah.
I don't think it's set up enough for... let's talk about the pacing.
Okie doke.
So, you know, this is the sort of the narrative pacing, as it were, and I guess that's linked to the mechanical pacing. Do you feel like there's some pacing here, or...?
So they've put a timer in it, which kind of inherently gets them some amount of pacing. The first time I played through this, I was like, oh, it's getting late, it's getting close to the thing. Will I be able to solve the mystery in time?
Yes.
But
it's also got the two stages, right? So it feels like you've got like building up to the race, and you are then doing the race. So I think that works quite well. The end of the race feels somewhat anticlimactic. I was expecting there to be something that happened during or at the end of the race, right? But I mean, a satisfactory would be some ascending pacing, and good would be ascending pacing with a clear final peak.
I don't think we quite have that. We have the... I think there is some ascendant pacing. I don't think it's...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's mostly sort of let down by the race being a little bit flat when it should be the climax. But again, they have pulled things together to sort of make it feel to have that sort of building tension up to that point.
And that takes us on to storytelling techniques. So this is the ways in which they've actually told the story. So we've got the dialogue. Mm-hmm. Do we have any environmental storytelling going on?
We've got these notes. I don't know what any of them mean, but they are scattering like little extra tidbits of story throughout the thing that persist across plays, and that's kind of an interesting... So I did just find another one of those notes that said, if you found this note, you know who to look for, and I really don't.
So the
I don't know where I am.
The map itself never changes, right? There's no...
Oh, and there's
nothing in the map to show it. I suppose there's the...
Equally, there's those... there's the clues about, the fox's medical bills or the rabbit's secret obsession with... whatever, with the trophy. So there are definitely elements where they're conveying stuff that's not just through dialogue, and there is kind of a cutscene at the end that wraps things up rather than like dialogue. I am very lost now though, so I think the turtle might win after all, even though I took the shortcut. So this I
have no idea where to go.
So in terms of techniques, I think they've got
yeah.
they've got successful use of more than one game writing technique at least, so they're at least at a good. Oh, that's kind of nice. Like, we get water sounds when I go next to the water. That's I don't know how often that happens, but it's nice that they've done that.
So
do we think
to push it up to an excellent, it would have to have mechanics that support the theme.
And they are almost there, because like you said, if they had given us the incentive to start the race late because of one of these mysteries we're investigating, that would work really well. But the problem is they don't. So I think it's a solid good though.
Yeah, I'd agree. And that takes us on to feedback. So this is the advice that they got in the lab, and what do they do about it? So they said the primary feedback focused on ensuring that branches had a meaningful impact and that solving them didn't rely entirely on guesswork. So, for example, in earlier versions of the game, players were not informed about the cave's existence and had to figure it out on their own. However, in the current version, players can interact with a miner who provides information about shortcuts, including the location and the requirement to collect pickaxes. Christ, if it didn't tell you that, you wouldn't have a clue where to go.
You'd
never get through the cave.
Yeah, you'd have had to leave the town, go all the way around the town, and then walk through a featureless void until you happen to. Wow, yeah. So okay, definitely that has improved things. I think they could have done more with that, like maybe having a path to the cave or something like that to, again, environmental like guidance and leading of agency. But anyway, what else have they said?
So only one other thing, which was that the village branch lacked a major storyline, resulting in low narrative impact. So to address this, we added key story elements involving the major, as well as side stories about the race trophy and fish collection, which increased the village's narrative importance. So it sounds to me like the village initially was just a place where you found out about the race, picked up a speed potion, potentially found out about the cave, and they've added in sort of these extra bits.
Okay, so first off, there's a couple of things there where, like, the fish collection, I had no idea that was a thing that I was being incentivized to do. No, I don't think I spoke to anyone saying go and collect all of these fish. The major, okay, apparently an important character that shows up at the end. Did we learn anything about the major in the village? Because it sounds like we've missed something important. So if they've done that to set stuff up, again, it feels like it's made an improvement, but they haven't quite taken it far enough. Like, again, like the side stories and things like that ended up making me think that it was building towards something that then just sort of didn't.
So there is one thing in their notes, which is again about this sort of multi-dimensional thing. So it says the game is designed to encourage multiple playthroughs, and the island on which the story takes place is stuck in a time loop. With each playthrough resets certain game world elements, there's a persistent nature across loops. This progression primarily happens through interactions with a key character, the Major, and by collecting the scattered notes. So I think maybe one of the problems is we haven't found the Major apart from the end.
Where was he though? I thought we'd been to everywhere in the village.
Well, I thought so, but unless the Major only appears at the end, and when you get to the end, we haven't got to the end twice yet, have we?
No, and this because I can't. I don't know where I am because there's no guidance of like where to go from here. It's alright. The turtle's going to win in 20 seconds.
I'm also not sure that so I'm not sure that second one has worked well, right? They basically said, you've got this village section and it doesn't have much narrative importance, so it feels like they've just added things into that
sprinkled
section.
In some side quests rather than making sure it links up properly with
the main one. Yeah. So all right, let's see what happens when the turtle wins.
Oh, nothing. We have to wait another 6 minutes. Okay.
So look, I mean, satisfactory for feedback would be the feedback was addressed and the changes have been somewhat successful. So remember, we had these two bits of feedback. So one, it was about giving people information about the cave and the pickaxes, and the second one was about adding narrative to the village. I think that the first one worked, right, and the second one hasn't really worked.
I would almost be inclined to say both of them have had limited success. Oh, hello, there's a person.
That's the Major. There you are. Did you know we're in a time loop? There we go.
What would have happened if I'd spoken to him the first time I played this?
So presumably, I'm guessing you wouldn't have said that, but Okay.
Okay, so
So
this is again
so you
gameplay
wouldn't have
impacting
had that.
story.
Yes. Yeah.
Having a closer look at you, you seem evil. I think there's another moral about books and covers, but
Yeah.
okay. But what does that do?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, I think for the feedback, do we think that I think the feedback's been addressed, but have the changes had limited success or have they been somewhat successful? That's the key question. And I think both of us feel that they're probably closer towards limited success.
I think so. Like we would have never known about the cave if they hadn't changed that. But even then, the fact that we found the cave and then immediately got lost on the other side of it means that feedback, like they didn't address that enough.
So okay, so if we were to kind of summarize where we are with this game, then what would you say?
So overall, like, it's a nice concept, but it feels very much like it's broken into two halves that don't necessarily link together as strongly as they could, and it feels like the climax that they're going for either needs some extra like mechanical features that could sort of like tie into some of the themes that they're trying to tell, like with the incentive to start the race late, or signposting some of these sort of like narrative elements that they've included, like making the major easier to find, or having an NPC that says, "Oh, there's this weird guy skulking around in the north side of town. I wonder what he's up to."
Have you spoken to them? I agree with you. I think it feels like it's split in two halves. I mean, I think they've done a lot of work to make the game bit work quite well. So this exploring around, talking to people, the inventory, the notes, all of that stuff all works really well. There's a lot of work gone into making the simulation, if you like, work. But then the story that they've layered on top of that has been less successful, right? It's sort of, as you said, it's sort of broken into two halves. The first half is very confusing, and you don't really know why anything's going on or what you should be doing. And the second half isn't confusing, but also doesn't offer you any real choices because you're the hare and you can win the race really easily.
I think that also there's some quality of life around the timer. It's like the timer is kind of a nice idea. It would be more interesting if NPCs moved and did things at certain times, and if we had more time to explore that as a concept. But it also means that we are just, for a large part of the game, sitting and waiting for a timer to expire so that we can move on.
Yeah. So the design needs to be tighter, I think, is what we're saying, and kind of better integrated. The story and the game need to be better integrated.
Okay.
And the two halves of the story. But should we move on to our next game?
Yeah, let's. Okay, and this one is A Knight's Virtue. So, nice little title screen here. Movement controls, diversity,
very
space.
happy knight bobbing up and down. It's good.
And then
got lots of health.
Go right to start, and hey, look at that, we're already in the game. So
that's nice.
That I really like the parallax. The fact that
the parallax is lovely, isn't it? I love the fact
really
that
nice.
I love the fact that menu is a parallax that's in front of the knight. That's great.
Where is the rest of the guard?
It's
just us. The king forgot to send the mission brief, just a vague order to travel to Greyhawk. I'm just going to sit down for a while. You go on ahead. Okay, bye. Right.
Okay.
Okay, it just repeats the same thing. Help, brave knight. My crops are burning. My village will surely starve this winter.
Yeah.
Okay. But what do you want me to stab the fire?
Who'd you send to fight a fire? The man in the metal suit, famously known for keeping out the heat.
Can't
attack the fire.
Oh, I could try attacking the fire. I was joking when I said, "Do you want me to stab the fire?" But it turns out that is how you fight fires. Okay, so his dialogue updates when we do a thing.
Right. Eternally grateful. All right, lovely. Oh, did you?
So we get a little.
Oh, they're attacking you.
They are.
How did you know that?
Because he stabbed me, and there was a loud noise, and my health started going down.
Okay.
Yeah, they look very similar to everyone else. So if these are supposed to be
Yeah,
bandits, that's just a farmer with a grey apron.
Yes, it is. Okay.
But okay, making use of their assets.
Keep going.
It does feel like they thought, I should put some gameplay in this game. Noble Knight, help us. They are bandits. They're trying to steal from us. Oh, it's alright, my health has been refilled, so I can absolutely...
Yep.
Oh, but these bandits are not just stabbing me immediately.
Brave warrior, help us dispatch these do-gooders, and we'll make it worth your while. Well, what do you think? Curse upon both the houses. Oh no, wow. You are one effective knight.
I am. I wonder if I can stab these as well now. Thank you, kind soldier. For your trouble, we shall send one of our own to assist you. Aha!
Okay.
So we're beginning to get a hang of the moral of this fable, perhaps?
Yep.
Hey you and your villager friend. Oh, look at that! Taking note of things that are happening in the game world and referencing them. We've got a panther. It's been stealing food. Let's put it out of misery.
Put out of its misery.
There. What? I didn't feed it. I just interacted with it. Okay. Oh, I've got a panther friend now.
Okay.
I take it back. This is the best day ever. Go. Kill. Okay. No, I've changed my mind.
I'm trying to figure out, is that a cruise ship coming into port behind you, or is that...
I think it's
something else.
It's the horn that all bandits are legally required to pay before mugging you. My pet panther and pet villager are not the most effective in combat.
Yeah. No, the world's most passive panther. Okay.
Alright.
So a new scene.
I'm gonna hide here.
Hide behind a bush. Brave Sir Knight.
Dear Knight, I heard you always put out a fire.
Yeah. Oh, another reference.
Hey, can you help out an old man? I need somebody to gather wood from the log pile and light this campfire. No, I only put fires out.
Yeah.
Okay. That poor guy will be doing quests for hours.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna play through it properly, but then I'm gonna look, more references to things that are happening. Very nice.
Yeah. Oh, the log pile. Okay.
Any of you want to... Oh. Hey, look at that. More things changing.
The old man's got his hooks in that one.
There we go. Oh no.
So I was about to say, one of the problems with this is I'm not entirely sure why you're doing any of this thing.
Because we're a knight.
But I'm beginning to sense that might be the point.
Are you saying that if a child was stuck in a well, you'd say, but why should I do anything about it?
Yeah. Especially if I was out for a walk with my pet panther.
That's true.
Better things to do.
There's only a few more things that I need you to do. I would be more willing to help you, old man, if you spoke quicker.
Can you choose to not do them?
Yeah, probably. There we go. That's everything now. And we got a ding.
Okay.
Don't worry, the second time we play through this, I'm not going to be...
Quite so helpful. Oh, there's the bandit cruise liner.
Hey, good bit of information design telling us that there's bandits about. The evil king has imprisoned my dear friend.
Yeah.
He's such a good guy. I was on board until you said, also, man, you're so tall. Why aren't you helping?
Yeah.
Oh. It's kind of nice. Little bait and switch.
Okay, but then you killed them anyway.
Well, because he did an evil laugh and said that I shouldn't have done that.
That's your criteria, is it? For stabbing somebody?
It seems that way.
Intruder. Who is this?
I don't. So there is this. I mean, they kind of made a joke out of it, but it would have been nice if they had told us what we were supposed to be doing. I think.
Oh, here comes the.
Oh
king.
wait, no, I remember this game from the labs actually. Unhand them, please, young knight. Join me inside.
Join me inside. Okay.
So they deliberately left the goal ambiguous. So it's a case of, are you supposed to be going there and raising this castle and deposing the evil king, or are you supposed to be going and hanging out with him and being friends?
Yeah. Well, they kind of said at the beginning. They kind of set it up so that it was you were one of the guard and the other ones who got missing and. Okay. Yeah. Goody two shoes Tom over there.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Agree to alliance with your king. Oh, okay. So this isn't our king. See, I didn't quite get that.
There we go. But because we were nice, we get justly rewarded.
Thanks for playing. And a little triumphant tune. Okay.
It'd be nice if it took us back to the menu screen, but
yeah, but still. All right, interesting. Should we start going through the criteria? And meanwhile, you can be bad knight.
Yeah.
You're being really bad knight now. Yeah, leave those on fire. Let it burn. Burn it all down. Oh, there we go. Get him. Here's one of our guys. What did the guys do? Did they do anything? Did the panther do anything?
No, I don't think so.
God, look at this power it's been. Alright. Can you kill it? Yeah. Marvellous. You go back and talk to them. Did he then join you?
Can't talk to them.
No. M. That's the,
no, that's just
E.
a sideways E.
E's fallen over as well. I like it. Okay, while we're doing this, let's talk about presentation. I think the presentation is really nice.
Yeah, like the parallax in particular.
Parallax is really lovely. The integration of the menu. There's some nice bits of feedback. I would have liked some indication that they were attacking you.
I mean, there's
other than the noise, but but otherwise, I would say that the presentation is probably, well, it's certainly professional, complete, effective. It's definitely there, which is good. Excellent would be impactful, complete, effective, and appealing. And I think I'd probably put it there.
I think so, yeah.
The one up of that would be novel or especially creative. I don't think it's
quite there. Like there's enough room for polish that like a few little extra things they could add. But I think what they've got is pretty good.
Very good. Yeah, very good. Meaningful play. So the mechanics, the controls. So your mechanics, you can walk around, you can interact and talk to people.
Yeah,
you can,
we've got the combat, obviously.
Combat, you've got the kind of cages and the kind of odd bits of interaction you've got. But it all seem okay? Is it easy to
mechanically
control?
So the gameplay that's there again feels a little bit token, right? It's just wander through and swing your sword for a little bit until you get to the next bit of dialogue and the next choice.
Yeah.
The choices themselves are, kind of like small but humorous and kind of interesting. And like, although the combat is a little bit token, it still plays relatively well. Like, it's clear when you're being hit. It's like, it's clear when you're hitting them. They fall down eventually. Yeah. It's a very simplified version of a what you might think of as a larger combat system. But in a context of this little prototype, it works quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, a good would be engaging. A reasonable game with multiple mechanics, smooth controls. And I think it's kind of there.
Okay. Although this guy doesn't seem to want to die.
Excellent would be higher complexity with complementary mechanics and intuitive controls.
I mean, it's almost there, I think.
sort of lacking a bit in complexity.
It's a shame my bandit friend's not really doing anything.
No, that is a shame. But at least the king's fighting back now.
He's got 2 advisors now. 3 advisors.
There's no feedback on how the health of the king as well, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, so in terms of play then, so I was saying I thought it was at the kind of good level, and you reckon. So I mean, the key word is it engaging or is it fun?
I would say it's partway between engaging.
That's fine. We can go with that. Let's think about the story engine. So how much the story impacts the game and vice versa. So first up is game world to story.
So definitely has an impact, because if we stab the old man, everyone in the village gets very grumpy with us.
Yeah, and also you get references to what's going on.
Yep.
And also, of course, you get different ending. The ending is very much dependent on your actions
Throughout the game, yeah.
Throughout the game. So I think we've got a number. Well, good would be a number of examples where the game world impacts the story in important ways. I think that's probably true. I'm a little bit disappointed about the companions, that they don't seem to do anything. I think that probably comes into the story to game world more than anything else.
Yeah,
but certainly for game world to story is probably up at the good level.
Yeah.
Excellent would be a consistent interplay between game world and story, including important impacts. I mean,
so
there is sort of an ongoing acknowledgement, isn't there, of what's going on?
Like particularly this little scene where you're going constantly backwards and forwards, and the dialogue is changing each time. I actually really like. I don't know if you could count it as important, because it's not a pivotal story moment, but it's.
I think we could say it's halfway between the two.
Yeah.
It sort of lacks importance, but it's consistent. Story to game world. So that's the choices you're making in the narrative. Does that impact the game? So, I mean, it impacts it at the end because the king fights with you or not, depending on the choices you've made. And you get your animal companions, but they don't. Sorry, not your animal companions, your companions, but they don't seem to do anything.
Oh, interesting. A bit of a bug, so I can't. Because I killed this guy. That guy is now immortal.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So you can collect allies that follow them, but they don't do anything. So I think story to game world. There are again some examples, but
it's probably weaker than the game to story.
What I mean, a good would be a number of examples of when the story impacts the game world in important ways. A satisfactory would be some examples, and it feels like really it occurs at the end.
Yes.
Do you get attacked to the? Yeah. It all happens here, right? I think.
Also, like, if we had I would expect that if we'd befriended the bandits would have stopped attacking us, and I don't think that was the case.
So I think that puts it at the sort of satisfactory level. And then we talk about agency. So this is the number of choices. Are they interesting choices?
So here's the thing. There are a lot of different choices, and they're interesting in that, well, they're not morally grey. They're very morally black and white, and it's very much that kind of cartoony, Star Wars-esque. Are you going to be bad for the lulz?
Yes.
But it's not a calculation. It's not like one will give you an inherently better thing than the other. It's just, do you want to see both endings effectively?
Yeah. So their story structure is kind of interesting in that.
Oh, interesting. There's another choice at the end where if we fight the king, we can then also choose to kill him or save him, and at which point he's happy and ignores everything else we've done.
Okay. So I was going to say the story structure is interesting, and that it's actually presented as little mini structures for each of those encounters.
Yeah.
So you've got the squire, house on fire, bandits, the panther, freeing a bad person, all of that kind of stuff. They're all individual bits, right? And then at the end, you get an encounter in the castle where, depending on your alignment, effectively, you get a good ending, a bad ending, or you get a little, it depends on what you do ending, which is what you had just a minute ago. So I think you're right. There's a number of choices, and it's not obvious which one you should do, but at the same time, the conflict isn't very well supported, right?
Yeah.
So it's literally like, do you free the panther or not? Up to you. You're like, well, it's not obvious that one of those answers is better than the other one, which I suppose makes it interesting.
Do you put out the fire or not?
But at the same time, there's no reason given for those two things. So you don't feel like you're in tension. You end up feeling like you're more in a void, and there's nothing to guide your decisions.
And like again, to an extent, that was intentional because they wanted the ambiguity of you don't know if your king sent you here to befriend everyone or murder everyone.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It still kind of suffers from that lack of guidance a little bit.
So a satisfactory would be a number of interesting choices. A good would be a number of interesting choices and attempts to player manage agency.
I think that's probably...
which I think they've achieved.
Yeah.
Excellent would be a network of interesting choices and an effective system for managing player agency. It doesn't feel like a network of choices. It feels a bit more
it feels like they're all sort of individual choices.
Yeah, and they lack coherence, right? But yeah, okay. So I think still it's at the good level, right? There's a lot of choices there. It's not that they're offering you a daft choice where there's obviously one good answer or the other. So that takes us on to techniques and pacing.
So techniques-wise, primarily we've got, again, dialogue, as you'd probably expect.
Yep.
Do we have anything else?
So you've got a little bit of environmental storytelling, I guess.
In what way?
You're encountering the scenes set out, right? So you've got the fire, you've got the panther in the pit, you've got the person in a cage.
Feels like a bit of a reach.
I know it's a bit of a reach. You're right.
You can call that 1.5, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. It's mainly done through the dialogues, and they're not even dialogues, right? They're sort of information pop-ups. I mean, in a sense, I kind of like the fact that the decisions are all diegetic. That's quite nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a satisfactory would be fully successful use for at least one game writing technique, and good would be successful use of more than one game writing technique. Right? So it's like, well, yeah, okay, you're right. It's not. I don't think you can really count it as environmental storytelling. It's more like it's just reflecting your choices. So I think that puts it at the satisfactory level for techniques.
Yeah, I think so.
But what about pacing? Do you feel like you've kind of got a climax? You've got
we've definitely
battle
got
with the king.
the final confrontation. In a way,
does it feel like it ramps up to there? Do you feel?
I kind of. So we have like, oh, there's a fire, put the fire out, and then we have this guy who's like, now go and do all of these other jobs.
Of stuff.
It's sort of, there's almost like an ebb and flow where we've got like a bit of just mindlessly swinging a sword at some bandits, and then a bit where we have to make a decision about, do we help this guy with his chores? But it's on the flatter side of it. It's most like a series of individual vignettes with a climax at the end, rather than rising to.
I think it's quite flat with the final peak. I think I see what they were going for with the kind of the ambiguity, but they should have maybe, if they wanted to do that, they should have really lent into it, right? So you wake up, you're a knight, you have amnesia, right? You're making your way to the king of this kingdom to find
do something,
to get his help, right? To find out who you are, and then on the way you pick up bits of information that either tell you that you're coming from another kingdom that wants to defeat this one, or that you're here to make an alliance, or so you begin to set up the tension in the player's mind without. I think at the moment it's just an absence.
So here's the thing. Although we're primarily looking for narrative pacing, you can still align that with your mechanical pacing. So if it had just been the case of the first time we see a bandit, there's just one of them, and then at the end there's 5 of them, and then you can sort of incorporate that environmental storytelling, which is on the outskirts of the kingdom. Everything is actually pretty nice, but as we get closer, we find that the king's under siege, and things sort of start changing in the background, and there's more bandits and blah 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 blah. So weirdly, at the minute, we've got a climax, but we don't necessarily have that ascending pace up to it. So a pass would be the pacing is unclear or flat. Satisfactory would be some ascendant pacing, and a good would be ascendant pacing with a final peak.
So it's probably in the middle, I think.
I'm inclined to say that it is kind of the satisfactory level. Because
there is,
like, we build a party, there is a final peak, but again, the middle bit is could have had more of a build up to it. So I think satisfactory.
And I think from the narrative point of view, they just lack framing. They need to kind of frame the decisions you're making and make them a bit more interesting. And that way they can, as you get closer to the castle, they can give you information that increases the dramatic tension by making those decisions more important or more difficult, right? So let's look at their feedback. So they said the first thing they were told was don't reward good behavior with less gameplay, which is a classic one. So they said we changed the ending to always include some form of combat and modified the story to match. This meant changing the good ending to include combat before the king swoops in to reward you. So it's this one, right, where you fight this guy. Okay. I like what they've tried to do there, but I'm not convinced that having some old man stand in your way is necessarily a good idea.
It's not quite the same climactic final battle as the giant king with the...
Yeah, you ought to have had something like the king reward. As the king is praising you, his
attack.
Kingdom is assailed by bandits.
Exactly,
right? And you and the king fight them off or something, right? So I think they've kind of, I don't think they've interpreted that.
Gotten the spirit of it though.
Yeah. A second one was don't make it multiplayer. We didn't make it multiplayer as the complexity would have led us to making a less good game, especially mechanically. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Not quite sure why you'd want to make it multiplayer. That's like saying don't make it all beige.
Or don't give yourself a whole bunch of extra work.
Yeah. The game affects the story, but make sure the story also affects the game. So throughout the game, the player can gain allies by performing certain actions in encounters. But the allies don't do anything, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. So again, I'm not convinced by that one either. Don't allow the first combat the player sees to be in the endings. We added small combat situations throughout the game where the player can try and run past, providing a clear combat encounter for the player to engage with. The damage dealt will often require the player to block or fight back. So I think that has worked, right? I think that
to the extent that it adds a nice little like soupçon of gameplay, and it means that when there's a big climactic boss battle, it's not the first time we're thrown into it. I would say I'm not sure I ever needed to block because I forgot that block button existed. But
yes, but
but yeah.
So I have to be honest. I think most of those feel like they've done something, but it hasn't really solved the problem. Changing the ending just kind of gives you an alternative bit of action, but it's not the equivalent. Don't making it multiplayer. It's like, well, why would you make it multiplayer in the first place? Making sure the story affects the game. They already had a little bit of that in there anyway, and what they actually added in doesn't have much effect because it's just the allies just sort of come along for the ride. So it's only really the last one.
If they had provided like some mechanical assistance, it really would have nicely affected the story to game world, because that was the bit that we felt it was missing. So they've definitely, the things they've done have all been good. Some of them have been sort of trivially good, which is to say not making it multiplayer. The others, again, could have gone a little bit further to sort of really highlight or address some of that feedback. So would you say...
Yes, is it somewhat successful or is it limited success? That's the
Potentially between the two.
I was about to say. I think some of them have been somewhat successful, some of them are much more limited success. So yeah, I'd go between the two. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Final thought?
Yeah, like sort of nice, simple, snappy, showcases most of the things that we asked for, and
Yeah.
it's again like a nice quick thing that you can sort of like quickly replay to see all the different endings. I think it's
Yeah.
actually very nicely polished. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a nicely conceived game, isn't it? And really nicely polished. And I think they they just needed to have a little bit more in terms of kind of thinking about the sophistication in the storytelling, getting that pacing going throughout the game, kind of having a little bit more in terms of the story impacting the gameplay, and I think that would have been the icing on the cake. But yeah, not really quite nice though.
All
Yeah,
right,
not bad at
fantastic.
all.
Let's move on to the next one.
Let's do that.
Okay, and our last game for this batch is the Thief's Gamble.
Wow,
So first
that
up,
is one fantastic city model.
yeah, like
Um,
having the camera sort of pan through all of these different little scenes, very
yeah,
nice. I'm curious how much of this is going to be incorporated into the gameplay, because it looks like we've got a lot of different locations, areas, people, things going on.
wow,
Um,
yeah. So it's worth saying it's not just the model, right? It's the way it's set up, it's the camera panning, it's the music.
exactly, yeah.
Very nicely put together. Yeah. So let's hope they've set the bar for themselves very high. Let's hope that let's see what the game's like.
Okay, all right. So far,
Approach the king.
approach the king. How do we know he's the king? Star always represents your next objective. There we go.
Okay, fine. We know it's the king because he's got a crown.
Ah, there you are, brave
Got
one.
voice acting.
I've heard tales
Yeah.
of your skill, but words are just air. I need deeds.
Space to skip. Okay, we've got a nice little
Yeah.
tiny little drawing of the king.
There's a mission
King,
of utmost
yeah.
secrecy, a task that could change the fate
Oh.
of this kingdom, but I can entrust it only to someone proven. To earn that trust, you must pass a test. A thief has stolen gold from the royal treasury, gold meant for the people and the soldiers
Okay.
who defend us. Find this rogue, reclaim what's mine, and show this thief is no ordinary criminal. He's cunning and resourceful. Succeed, and I'll know you are worthy of the greater challenge ahead. Go now, prove you are the hero we
Okay.
need.
So
Go prove yourself, Tom.
So here's an interesting thing. We're now in an era where I'm trying to figure out was that voice acting or was that AI? And I'm not sure.
So I remember now where I've seen this game, and it wasn't in the expo. I did a call with them and gave them some feedback on it, and I asked them that exact question because I said that sounds like a suspiciously American and monotone king. So yes, I think it is AI generated. Do you think that's a sneaky and resourceful criminal?
Hello.
Or is it in fact a criminal that walks up and down slowly with a bag on his head that says, I am a massive criminal?
Oh, I've been spotted. Oh no. Oh, we got. Ooh, and I was caught. What's he going to do?
Ah, checkpoint.
Okay, nice. The minimap's kind of nice as well.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
So I also
there
see you've
part
got
of me
a
that's
giant.
part of me is a
you've got a
little
giant-
curious how many
Yeah.
like of these, like obviously the visual assets and things like that, but things like the minimap, I'm wondering how many of these did sort of come packaged together.
Yeah.
But if they pulled them together, it's
Returned
quite nice.
victorious.
So
I heard you were caught, yet here you are defying the odds. Now the gold, what will you do with it?
more gold for spells? No, we'll be honest. So again, I heard you were caught. Is that because we actually did get caught the first time and we had to restart? If so, that's kind of
Remarkable.
nice.
You
Yep.
returned every coin. This was a test of your character, and you've passed. The gold is yours to keep. Honesty is its own reward in my kingdom.
But it's still a bit
greater
odd that the
challenge
king
now
says,
awaits. A
are you going
deadly
to
plague
steal
has
from me,
swept our kingdom,
effectively?
and only a mystical crystal, hidden deep within the undead kingdom,
No.
can save us. It is said to possess healing powers capable of curing any ailment. Retrieve the crystal, and you will not only save this kingdom, but prove yourself a legend. Go, and may the gods guide you.
Standard fantasy plot number 16B.
Yep.
Get the magic crystal.
So it's disappeared now, but I also noticed you had a kind of compass up in the top right hand. There you are. It says you're virtuous.
Oh, I see.
So presumably you have a kind of running morality. Oh, it's the wizard.
Ah, a radiant soul enters my domain. Your deeds
English
of honor
AI this
have
time.
not gone unnoticed. For such a noble spirit, my magical wares are yours at a most gracious price.
Okay, yeah,
Browse
the more I
freely
listen to this now,
and
there's
let
definitely a
justice guide
bit
your
of a
choices.
strange tone to it. But equally,
Yeah.
you know, like, would I prefer this over having no voice acting at all? Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Threaten the wizard for better prices. Oh,
You're
again,
doing-
this
you-
is
you're
really
being nice
nicely.
and, yeah.
I was just
You're
saying, like,
being virtuous, aren't you?
yeah. I'm just like the fact that, you know, as we mouse over
Yeah.
these, like, again, a nice
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
really
of polish
good.
to the UI. Again, I don't know if that's part of an asset
Oh.
pack, but it's kind of nice. Ooh.
And look at
My God.
these.
Oh, do we get a discount because we're
sort of
virtuous?
little spell cards.
Bone Seer strides the stag. Grants invisibility. I don't know what we're being expected to do, so I don't know which of these is
Yeah.
going to be most useful, but I can
What do you reckon?
buy. Ooh, got some other potential things here, maybe? Striders. So, you know, I'll buy.
19 gold.
Oh, so I bought something. Oh, I guess I've already bought this, so I can't buy it again.
Have you?
Seem to be.
So you can buy the Phantom Cloak or the Bone Seer.
Oh, Q and R, I see.
Oh, you bought the leave the kingdom. The gates open. That's nice, like the gate opening up. Bit of literally gated content. Oh, there's the thief.
So they've gone
Head
for
for the
like a
undead
stealth
kingdom.
mechanic. This does not. Stealth seems like a weird mechanic, given like the main framing of you are the king. You are a brave knight, and the king has ordered you to go and do something. Now sneak through all of these guys. Wow.
Yeah, which is around the castle full of thieves.
Like, why can't I just walk there?
It's a slightly unusual premise, but fine. Do you know where you're going?
Nope. The star is over there, though.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
I like the way you can. I think you can see the star, even though it's obscured by things. That's quite
That is
nice.
very nice.
Yeah, look at that. A cooldown on your spell.
Yep. You having some car trouble?
Kind traveler, please, I need your help. My wagon has tipped over and I can't set it right alone. Will you lend me your strength? I'd be deeply grateful.
Why does
Costs
it
you
cost-
3 gold.
Why does it cost
Why-
me 3 gold?
Of course, let me
Because-
help you with that.
Yeah.
I'll have it upright in no time. There you go. The wagon's upright. Take these 3 gold coins as well. They might
okay.
help with any repairs or troubles down the road.
Thank you, kind soul.
Okay.
I don't know what I would have done without your help. May the gods bless you on your journey. Your kindness will not be forgotten.
Infiltrate the UK and steal the jewel.
Hello, wizard. Fancy seeing you here.
You're going to sell us some spells.
A radiant soul enters my domain. Your deeds of honor have not gone.
Yeah.
So
do you have anything offered for 2?
Oh,
No.
my things have gotten cheaper though.
They have gotten cheaper, but not cheap enough,
No.
unfortunately. Sneak through the cemetery. Shouted the undead skeletons.
Excuse me.
Seems unusual.
Pardon me.
No, you were caught.
If only I had an invisibility spell.
So, one of the problems I think. So this is basically a sneak game, but without having kind of sort of cones of awareness and stuff like that, it's actually quite difficult to.
Sneaking past these two is going to be difficult unless Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think. Yeah. So do you have your special?
Oh.
Oh, you died. Didn't
Well,
I tell you about the lava?
I could walk on water, so I thought I might be able to walk on lava.
But didn't it? What's your spells again? Is
Yeah,
one of your
definitely.
spells? Do you have a walk on lava spell?
Nope. I've got a walk quickly, a be invisible, and
Oh,
the one that I couldn't buy was see enemies through things. So if
well,
I hadn't,
just use the be invisible then.
yeah,
It's
but
ready.
if I hadn't bought that, would I now be
Yeah.
soft locked? How would I get past?
I don't know. Perhaps you would.
Like, could I just could I like jump?
You'd
on
like
these
to
rocks?
think that there would be another way through.
You would, but oh well. Here we are. Da, 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 da.
There you go. Right. So you're into the. Been spotted again. So do you feel? So watching you, it feels to me that you're sort of just randomly spotted.
It
But your
feels that way to me
control-
as well.
So this is what I mean about I would expect there to be
You know,
I
code,
said,
like
sort of
vision cones or
vision cones, things that would warn you, hiding places,
you know,
a
if
little
they're
bit more
holding
kind
a
of
torch
level
or something
design.
like that.
Try to jump right across. If you jump down onto the little platform at the bottom, and then jump across to the other side.
I don't think I'll have enough height, but let's.
I think if you go along a little bit, you might be able to get there. There's a narrow place there. Look, see.
Oh, I see.
I'm wondering if you can get down there.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting. I don't seem to be able to jump and sprint at the same time.
Yeah. See if there's a. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah. There's the wizard.
Same spells as before, though. But
Yeah. Okay.
can I parkour my way up here?
Um.
Oh, I can parkour my way up here.
Yes, you
Fantastic.
can. Look at that. Shall we start talking about things like the
Oh, I'm supposed to go
presentation and play?
But I'm supposed to go over there. Oh no. Yeah, let's do that.
So presentation, I think, needless to say, graphically it's lovely.
Yep.
I mean, I suppose if you were being nitpicky, you'd say that there's not much environmental animation or effects, but the model's great. The usage of the camera at the beginning was fabulous. The sound effects, a little bit of music, and I think the music was environmental. So when you were in the town, I think you got different music. Information design is good, very clear how much coins you've got, the cooldown on the spells, the mini map. So for me, presentation I would say is up at the excellent level, which is impactful. Would you say it was the prizeworthy would be memorable,
I think it
complete,
kind of
effective,
would.
and appealing, with novel or especially creative elements?
Yeah, I think it would, and I think
You see, I think bits of it are. I think the kind of the camera panning at the beginning and the way they set up the world at the start was really nice.
yeah, and like it's the bits. So here's the thing, right? A lot
It's
of
very
this
well
is
polished.
from obviously from other asset packs, and that's perfectly okay because we don't expect people to be 3D modelers and like animation riggers and so on. But the way they have put them together is very, very nice. Like again, the setting up the the camera so that it pans over on the title screen was a really nice touch. So I think it's definitely part of the way there.
I would say for me, the reason I wouldn't give it for that is around the information design, around the sneaking aspects.
Yes, actually, yeah. I keep forgetting that that's bundled in with just it looking nice. So you're right. I think I was also gonna tuck that under gameplay, but you're right. It definitely comes into it of like how well do they show you what you need to be shown. Okay.
So I think I'd still be happy to say at the excellent level though. It's still very nicely put together. I mean, play, I think you can also include that. I don't think there's well, you found the crystal. So in terms of the mechanics,
Did you think you could
controls,
sneak into my
bugs.
kingdom after being caught by my guards? Show yourself
undead
at
queen.
once.
Ooh, turn around.
Wait, it's not what it looks like. I can explain.
But I
She's not
helped
very
you.
undead.
I know you. You're the one who helped me when I was stranded. You saved my life. But why are you trying to take my crystal from my kingdom?
Why are you surrounded by skeletons?
Your Majesty, I
Yeah.
am truly sorry. A deadly plague has swept through my kingdom. People are dying, entire families wiped out. This crystal is our only hope.
You risked yourself to help me when I was in need. Take the crystal, but promise to return it once your kingdom is healed.
I will not forget your kindness, Your Majesty. Thank you.
Oh. There you go.
It turns out we were the thief all along. Okay.
Yes. Although the undead kingdom thing is somewhat... Oh, here we go. A little cutscene. Yep.
Aha.
Mm,
Really hammering home the moral.
yeah, why not?
I'll be honest, I was wondering up until that point which of the fables it was supposed to be based
Yeah,
on. But yeah, I
yeah.
can. Okay, so
Let's talk about play. So the mechanics, you've got obviously you've got the wandering
There's a mission
around,
of
you've got the
utmost
sneaking
secrecy,
element,
a
you've
task
got the
that could change
interaction
the
with
fate of this
people,
kingdom, but I can entrust it only to
you've got the coins, you've got the spells. So there's quite a lot going on mechanically.
well, I wouldn't say loads. There's definitely like enough elements. In a way,
think
it feels like a lot of them are a little bit disparate, right? Like this. I guess
Yes.
the pocketing like gives you a little tutorial to the stealth actually, so that is kind of nice. But it's
But-
it's the
but-
only the fact
yeah.
that we've got a gold meter that has 26 of that tiny slice of gold, and this is the only point in the game where we receive gold feels.
Yeah. I think
You've
kind of
returned
it's like we said.
victorious.
I actually think that there's a reasonable number of mechanics, but it's just that
Half is missing.
that
Is this all of
it's
it?
not coherent around the stealth dynamic.
For a moment,
Mm.
I thought you were trying to deceive me. This was a
Um,
test of your character. You've mostly passed. Have some of this.
So you never
greater
use that
challenge
pickpocket
now
skill
awaits.
again, right?
A deadly plague has swept our kingdom.
No,
And only a
But
mystical
I mean,
crystal retrieve.
presumably it might have been possible to do things like have doors that required you to get through that needed keys, and you had to pickpocket the keys from the guards without being seen. So you could have had a bit more coherence across the game.
also I'm very curious how
The
possible this would
shadowed
be
wanderer
without.
returns. Your
Okay, so his
reputation
dialogue
precedes
changes
you,
based on
though
our
not for the
reputation. That's
best.
kind of nice. I don't know how
Yeah.
possible this game would be
Gold
without
has
that
its
invisibility
charm.
spell. So let's find out.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to threaten
Threat
wizard.
him.
Today.
We
So,
can't
yeah.
buy anything anyway. Yeah, and the spells. I mean, the invisibility
Alright.
one, obviously, but the spells don't otherwise seem like to be. I suppose the move faster might be as well, but okay. So, I mean, a satisfactory would be it's playable. You've got a simpler game with fewer mechanics, but with usable controls. May have some minor bugs. It feels better than that to me.
Yeah, definitely at least
Good.
there.
Good would be engaging, reasonably complex with multiple mechanics and smooth controls. Kind of feels like it's probably
I feel like
there.
we're probably about there. Yeah, the controls definitely do feel
And-
quite smooth. The jumps sometimes a little bit sticky, but
And then excellent
Time
would be higher
travel,
complexity
please.
with
I need
complementary
your help.
mechanics, and that's
My
the
wagon
problem.
has tipped over.
The
and I
mechanics
can't
don't
set it
feel like
right
they're
alone.
cohering around the stealth dynamic, so
Not
it
my
kind of feels
problem.
like it's a bit limited. But still good. Okay, what about the story engine? Game world to story, story to game world.
so game world to story. What do we do within the game that affects the story? Well, we can. Well, when we get caught, it does seem to reference that in dialogue.
Yes.
Beyond that, things that change the story. So the
Yeah.
wizard will change, for example, like if we threaten him or if we have been otherwise mean. But that all of those things happen in story, not gameplay. Like they're all sort of dialogue choices that we make that then impact the way people feel about us and the way they talk to us, not how often we're caught
So-
by a skeleton.
So that what they've said is the game world impacts the narrative by how effectively you use your stealth mechanic to get past enemies. By being a clumsy thief that gets caught regularly, NPCs they talk to recognize this with different dialogue responses. And based on the thief's pickpocketing performance and or greed for buying spells, you cannot afford to help the woman in Act 2, which causes a different dialogue because you haven't got the gold, right? Which ultimately changes the ending. So, okay, that's interesting. So that is a place where the game world does impact the story, because if you don't have the gold to help the woman, you don't get the choice, right?
But whether
And
or
you've
not
also-
you have the gold, is that like gameplay? Because it's not like you are rewarded with gold based on how effective at the game you are. It's whether you click the button that says "Lie to the King."
Well, you're given choices, right? So you also had that choice about, do you try to threaten the wizard, and then you put the prices. So I think the idea is that the more deceptive you are, the less money you have to spend on stuff. So it does
think you
feel
could
like
sneak
there
into
are a
my
couple of
kingdom
places.
after being caught by my guards?
So it does feel like a couple of places where the game world impacts the story.
Yeah.
But there's only one really important one, which is the interaction with the Queen and the wagon.
They're a little bit sparse.
And the other ones are just very minor references, but they are there.
That's true.
So satisfactory would be some examples where the game world impacts the story. Pass would be a few sparse or minor examples.
To me, it feels a little bit closer to the pass, but...
Well, what we could say is we definitely have a few sparse or minor examples, because we have the references in the dialogue, and we have one example where it impacts the story in an important way. So we could say that's halfway between the two.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Right,
so what about the other way around?
Here? Yeah.
Left me to rot, and now creepy.
Your Majesty, I'm sorry. Please, I beg you, spare me.
I'm terribly sorry.
Enough. You showed no mercy when I needed you, and now you ask for mercy in return? I hereby sentence you to execution. Guards, seize him.
I think Hollywood actors are safe for a moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, that's gone a bit dark.
He seems fine with it.
Yeah, he's still smiling away. Oh dear.
Okay, so yeah, what about the other way around, where we've got story to game world? So some of those decisions that we make so this is the thing, right? I would say that, like, trying to threaten the wizard and then having to pay more would more be an example of story to game world. But otherwise, there's not a lot that mechanically changes in the game. So
there's
the challenges we face, or arguably the abilities that we have, because again, if we've lied to the king, we don't have as much money, therefore we can't buy as many spells.
But the story, what are the choices you're making? What are the narrative choices you're making?
Well, that's what I'm
saying.
You
lie to the king,
lying to the king, threatening the wizard, choosing to save the woman.
So the obvious one is that's story to story.
That's story
you save
to story.
The queen,
yeah. You get a good ending.
You get an ending, but it doesn't change anything in the game. Do any of your story decisions affect the game other than in terms of the price?
No, because that's the only.
No.
That's the only lever that they have to pull, kind of.
So a pass would be a few sparse or minor examples of where the story impacts the game world. A pull would be some support for story elements, but the story has no real impact on the game world. Probably feels like it's arguably it's a pass.
Yeah, I think there's maybe some overlap in the way we're seeing some of these decisions. Again,
well, the problem is because the gold is the only measure. Well, you've got the morality, haven't you?
So,
but the gold is the way in which everything is expressed.
There you are, brave one. I've heard tales of.
But I still. So it's it depends on whether you think. So there are two places, right? So one is whether you try and swindle the king.
Mm-hmm.
That affects the amount of gold you get. And the second one is when you decide to threaten the wizard or not, which affects the price of things. I don't think there's anywhere else, is there?
Doesn't seem to be. like, it feels like there's a lot of scaffolding for stuff that they could have done, but the actual sort of bits and pieces, like again, like, you know, they've got a big asset pack with a big city, and it's kind of nice that they've like been able to use it, but they haven't used it as much as
the problem is it kind of begs it demands more, doesn't it? That's the thing.
And it's the same with like the dialogue choices.
Yeah.
Like, we've got this moral compass, but as far as I can tell, there's a limited amount of things that actually A, change it, and are B, affected by it.
So I think, given that you've got those two places where it impacts, and it does it directly by manipulating your gold level, do we think that counts as a few sparse or minor examples? Is 2 enough to count as a few?
It's 2 a few. Yeah. Yes, maybe. What do you think?
Well, I think, you know, if we can't quite decide, we should give them the benefit of the doubt, probably give them the pass. But I think it's a close thing, right? I think there's an argument as to why it would be halfway between a pass and a poor.
Yeah.
Let's talk about agency. So how many choices do you have are the interesting choices?
And again, this is one where it feels like it's not necessarily reached its full potential. So we've got the choice of spending some gold to save the, you know, like the what's the word? The crucial choice, saving the undead queen, the thing that decides whether we get a good ending or not. By that point, we've already it's entirely possible we've already spent all of our gold on this quest to save the kingdom, which doesn't feel like a selfish act, right?
Yeah.
But equally, there's a good chance that we'll just have the money left over. And if we've gotten to that point, then that's because we've chosen not to buy a spell. So there's no reason to save the money for when we see the wizard again to buy another spell.
Yeah. So our choice points are, with the king, do we try and take the money? Do we try to threaten the wizard? Do we save the woman in the cart? So we've got 3 choice points.
And interestingly, lying to the king, I would say, is maybe the most interesting of those choices. Because
apart from that, it's set up a bit weirdly, because the king basically says, "Now, thank you, you've got our money back. Now, are you going to try and steal it from me?" And you go, "Yes, I am." In which case he says, "Well, in that case..."
Well, you like it frames it nicely that you can say, "Oh, well, he had already spent some of the money, and I'm going to try and keep it." It's kind of interesting that there's like immediate like, having played through it twice, it is a calculation, because one of them, like, if you're honest, you get more money and everyone likes you more, and if you don't, then. But the way it is framed the first time through, you might think, "Oh, I bet I can get one over on the king here."
So there is an incentive to not. There's an incentive to try and build your gold up, right? In that you get the spells, and that you need the spells in order to progress. So there is a reason why you'd want to swindle the king. There's also a reason why you'd want to get the spells from the wizard without paying, and there's a reason why you wouldn't want to pay to write the cart. Although at that point, I don't think you know that you're going to meet the wizard again. So you might think to yourself, well, actually, it doesn't matter if I spend my money now. So I think they've given you an incentive to.
Remarkable.
They've given you an incentive to try and get away with more money.
Retrieve.
A pass for agency would be some choices, but only a fewer interesting choices. So our choices were swindle the king, threaten the wizard, save the woman. Yeah, I think the problem is that they all have the potential to be interesting choices.
Again, it just feels like you say, the potential's there, but maybe there's more they could have done with it. So where were we looking? So some choices, but only a few are interesting. Yeah.
And satisfactory would be a number of interesting choices. And I kind of feel that if they set it up a bit differently, they may have been up at the number of interesting choices, but maybe halfway between that and a pass.
Okay, here's a quick example, right? We're in the market, we've been told, go to the wizard, stock up on cells. If I could pickpocket a bunch of innocent people here,
Yes.
You know, A, I'm using those skills. B, it's adding more gameplay. C, it's adding a moral dimension of, do I steal from
Yeah.
innocent people in order to save the kingdom?
Yeah.
And that immediately gives you more interesting choices, and it ties together some of the gameplay that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Whereas giving you that as a dialogue option with the wizard is quite a
A
blunt
radiant
choice.
soul.
Mm,
And also, what person in their right mind threatens a wizard?
yeah.
Okay, so
So I think what they've done is they got the potential, but they haven't quite managed a number of interesting choices. I'd go for halfway between the two, I think.
okay, yeah. Which takes us on to techniques.
And yeah, techniques and pacing.
Techniques and pacing, yes. So techniques-wise, pacing, I mean, things definitely ramp up. We go from pickpocketing a thief to infiltrating a castle full of skeletons. I would say, again, despite, you know, the size of the world and the number of these NPCs milling around, the actual, like, gameplay segments or loops actually feel quite compressed.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's because, particularly on the way, I was able to evade this bit by just jumping in the river. But equally, it ramps up quite a lot from one guy to an army full of these. So there's definitely ascendant pacing, but it does feel like it's maybe not the most balanced of pacing.
So your pacing is the area outside the castle with the one thief. Then you've got multiple thieves out here in the farmland. Have you ever successfully run away having been spotted?
Yeah, like just now, in fact.
Oh, there you go. So you've got the thieves, and then you've got the undead kingdom. There isn't really a final climax.
There is, but it's a narrative one.
It's a narrative climax, but it's not linked to a mechanical. But even the narrative climax, it isn't a climax because you're not making a choice, right?
Yeah, it's
just the consequences of your actions.
You're right. It's almost like it goes straight to denouement of.
Yes.
And now we see what happens next, rather than it being a climactic decision or something like that.
But I would say so. I mean, a satisfactory would be some
go.
ascendant pacing, as it's definitely got that. A good would be ascendant pacing with a clear final peak, and I think that's missing. I think it's probably best described as a denouement rather than a climax.
Yeah.
So that would put it as a satisfactory. And then we get to techniques. So these are the way in which the story is told. So we've got a little bit of environmental storytelling because you've got the cart on its side.
Again, I think that's a bit of a reach, but
that's about it, I think. And then you've got the dialogue, and you've also got little cutscenes.
Yeah, we're not expecting like full AAA, cutscenes for these.
So just the static scene is nice, right?
The static scene again is like simple, but it effectively conveys what's going on.
So good would be successful use of more than one game writing technique.
So speaking of agency, the fact that I have to go exactly to the start for this to proceed, like I've accidentally gone too far in the game.
Yes.
So I have to go back.
Yeah.
And the fact that the checkpoint spawns you in the middle of the thing when I now have to sneak back out and then back in.
Yeah.
It could be polished a little bit. But yeah.
My feedback to them was about the stars. I will get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But I think what they have now is better than it was. But I think we have therefore the use of more one than game writing techniques. That would be good.
Yeah.
So but excellent would be that the mechanics support the theme. So the mechanics are essentially sneaking.
Yeah, which does not support the revenge and so on.
Which just seems to be
Which is just that one choice in them. Well,
it's not really. It's just not supporting it, right? It's just. Yeah.
It doesn't conflict
separate.
with it. It's just separate, like you say.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that means that we've got a sort of good for techniques. So that takes us on to feedback. So I gave them some late feedback, and what they said was, during the first lab we were told that we shouldn't put a hat on a hat, meaning we shouldn't layer a deferred choice on top of a deferred choice. That's an interesting way of putting it. So instead, we have a single deferred choice where the player chooses to help them or not, that ultimately decides the ending. As for the choice of the king, we implemented a new morality score mechanic, which is an underlying system that determines whether the player has made moral or immoral decisions. That is a kind of multiple deferred choice thing, though. I'm not quite sure what they mean by not having multiple deferred choices.
Because it seems like they do. Like
That's sort of what the morality system is.
And in fact, they in a way they argue that they did that intentionally, where they say, if you've spent all of the money you've got, then you can't give the money to the queen, which means then you can't get the best ending. So okay, do they mention anything else?
Yes, they said during our meeting, they said that the choice in the story needs to be informed, so the player knows why they should pick either action. So they had very little time left, so we added a small bit of information to each button of the choice that shows what the thief would be thinking at that moment. So this was like when you were asked if you were going to try and steal some money from the king. I said I have no reason to steal money from the king or not to steal money from the king. So they added in that stuff in brackets saying you can use this to buy spells later, basically.
Okay.
So, and I it's a minor thing, but I do think that worked. Secondly, there's a point in the game where the player must choose between several different paths, and before walking down their paths, they must choose in a dialogue which path they want to take preemptively. This was described as slightly odd. Yeah, sorry, that is the way I would have put it. And to make it more feasible to code. So we've changed it so the player can see what direction they're heading in with a star on the mini-map. So basically, after you left the castle, when you were navigating that town, they had a series of stars throughout the town.
Okay.
And you walked to that star, and that prompted a dialogue box to come up saying, do you want to go left or right?
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah.
And
I
the
think
problem was you could say, I want to go right, and then you could go left.
that's like the Stanley Parable.
And I exactly what I said. I said, it feels like you're doing something weirdly meta, like the Stanley Parable, but I don't think you are.
Yeah.
And apparently, and it was just being used to place the star. So if you said right, they put the star to the right, so you know where to go.
Okay.
So I said that's weird. I said you're conflating kind of navigational choices. You're using your narrative system to do it.
Just put the star where they need to go.
Just put the star where they
you
need
could
to go.
sneak
I
into
said
my king?
or dynamically move the star according to where they are. Right. So I do think that worked, and I think you went through that section with that. You never even thought to think about, your navigational choices, or am I going this way or that way? Right. It was the choices inherent in the level design don't need to be made with narrative mechanics, right? You just make them in the level, right? And that's fine. And thirdly, it was raised that we had places where the story impacts the game world, but not vice versa. Therefore, we implemented NPC dialogue that changes based on how clumsy a thief you are. So that they added in the stuff where it kind of notices how you've done and your reputation and stuff.
A couple of sort of like minor changes that I would say have definitely improved it.
Yeah.
But again, they've either sort of not necessarily hit the underlying cause of those things. Like, okay, there are a few bits where NPCs will describe you differently, but it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't ultimately change. The workings of the engine, or it's something where they've made. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, we were kind of discussed this when we talked about it, when I talked about it with them, but they had very little time left, so I think that's why they went for the easier option. But yes, you're right. So I think, a satisfactory would be that feedback was addressed and the changes have been somewhat successful, and good would be feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful.
It's definitely closer to somewhat.
Yeah.
In my mind.
I think so. They've done some minor stuff. They fixed some real problems they had with navigation, I think. But I'm also not sure what they meant about the deferred choices. So
yeah, I
it's
would
not
almost
particularly well explained. So I think probably the somewhat successful is the better place to put it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Final thoughts. Yeah, overall, like they've taken like a really nice sort of game world and put like a nice little prototype inside of it. Again, like the scope and scale of like the assets they've used have almost led to like raised expectations, which then they haven't necessarily been or had the time or scope to develop. But I think actually, if they carried on developing it and sort of fleshed it out a little bit more, like there's this whole area that we never saw at all.
No.
Which again
Mine,
makes me
yeah.
wonder, is like this title screen something that they've just got from the assets? Because if you know,
Yeah.
if they had programmed the camera to do this themselves, they would have shown bits that would be relevant to the story they were telling rather than
True.
this. But
Yeah.
as a, you know, as a fun technique of sort of adding a little bit of interest to the start, I think it was a nice thing to include.
Yeah. So I think, ironically, the thing that they were really missing here was some stuff from the first coursework, which was about having a strong core dynamic. And I think they should have been developing their stealth game a bit more, and then using that to kind of make those choices. Your example of whether or not to steal from people in this market that we're seeing here is a good example. So yeah, it felt a little bit bitty, and I think that was a problem. So the narrative choices, apart from the one narrative choice whether to save the queen or not, right? There's just not enough interesting narrative stuff going on, I think.
Yeah.
But you know, but as a sort of a prototype stealth game that's framed by a narrative, I think it works just fine. But yeah, I think the stealth mechanics could have been developed a bit more, and the story could have been integrated a bit more with the gameplay. But there's no denying it looks great. It's a very nice asset pack. Yeah.
Okie doke. In which case, that is our last game for this batch. So we will see you next time for the next video.